So you have the video, but you're saying, so you guys talking about mixing stuff?
Bro, they're talking a whole bunch of nonsense. Where the facts go. Peace, Morris. Yep, you already know what it is. Morris, I saw him rise and do the honors. Even though you're in the back eating.
That's why you see what I'm saying now? I knew you were gonna keep me there. Now you know where I want to finish, right? Okay.
Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
And
my salvation. By night. And by day. Through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Start with our letters to be read, to be proclaimed in every meeting. Islam, I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the last few years. Islam. So we're just continuing on today with the Back to Basics, Nationality and Citizenry class. We want to re-emphasize that Noble Drew Ali was the only individual that came and brought us back this perspective. There's been a lot of work in trying to keep the concept of nationality and proclaiming it and being yourself, trying to keep that information away from our people. And there's been a resurrection of this information over the past 20-30 years from different Moors taking the position of just presenting this to the people and letting the people do their own studying, do their own due diligence, and figuring out whatever mess that they were in. We also have to acknowledge that the words of Noble Drew Ali, in that he brought us everything that it takes to save a nation,
Right.
and told us to take these things and save ourselves with the things that he brought. So when we start getting into this information and we get to nationality, it's important that we know what it is that we're talking about. If you could check out the nationality in there. So we tell people to make sure they got their law dictionaries, etc. The last class on this topic, we had our new members or new people in class, fighting hard for fighting hard for their leaders and stuff that's been, fooling them.
I was hoping they were coming today, man.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I know.
Realizing
Yeah,
but I'm also realizing, remember what weekend this is, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the numbers may be
So
like
the numbers
this
might be light.
someone's sitting down eating a bird right now that represents
Getting
us, right?
the buzzard dinner.
Right?
What is the nationality?
Yeah, nationality. Right? Because as we know, we had they had their little stuff yesterday.
Yeah, the little march.
You know what I mean? They had their little march and stuff like that.
Where was this? The big march?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was
It
yesterday.
went down.
Was that in Washington?
Yeah.
A whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
How many people were there? Do you
Bro,
know?
at least a mil.
There was a good bit still.
Seeing that madness with Farrakhan there?
Yeah, the usual. The usual. Like we tell those people, yellow envelope collectors, they're gonna get, to say whatever they want. You know what I mean?
Or else,
Not
speaking
bring
of
up the
which,
issues.
real quick,
Yeah.
there was nothing in regards to or else.
Yeah.
Oh.
Zero. No or else.
Brutal.
Right? Lots of preaching and stuff like that. We also want to put out there Islam to, the few Moors that went just to, you know what I mean?
See, they're there.
Let's say they were there. They can't say that. Moors weren't there. Can't say that. There wasn't one that you could have ran over and said, "Hey, where's that hat?" Or "I seen it," whatever like that.
It was visible, you're saying? Or no?
Oh yeah. Yeah, C-SPAN had a couple shots.
Mm-hmm.
Fez is in the shot. I think there was I think BET had a couple, one or two shots, right? So there was a presence, right? I saw RBG flag, Moroccan flag, Puerto Rican flag. That's the only flags I've seen. I didn't even see too many flags.
Mm-hmm.
It was mainly people, right?
So just asking you. So did you check out any of it to understand? What
I just listen. I listened to some of the speech this morning.
So it was him basically making the speech,
Yeah, him just talking.
doing his nonsense.
Yeah, 2-hour lecture. Just a lecture at Washington D.C. opposed to Mos Miriam or whatever.
Which the attic is no different.
And then my question is the answer. Did he present anything? There was nothing revelatory to anything, right? Same nonsense in terms of.
I know people are feeling let down right now. They have to.
Like they have to be feeling let down.
No, what I'm saying, there was nothing that you could call.
Zero.
Nothing.
Zero.
Wow.
Nah.
Like zero. 2 hours, and he talked about Elijah Muhammad. Oh, he talked about he didn't kill Malcolm X.
Then he paraded
Talked about that.
Elijah Muhammad's
Then
children.
he brought up Elijah Muhammad's children, and that's his family and stuff like that. And
See, again, this is sort of some self-serving little.
yeah.
Sort of self-serving little what do you call it? Grandstanding.
Yeah, because he's what, 80 now. You know what I mean? So you gotta.
Maybe one last kick at the
One
can
last
for
lap.
some-
Last
you know,
lap.
it's like
Last
you
lap,
see these-
boy, last
you know,
lap.
You see these old rockers, they go out on one last tour. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right, yeah.
It's like
The
the
last
Rolling,
Paul
this is like the
McCartney tour,
Rolling
yeah,
Stones
yeah.
before you pass the baton.
Before they pass the,
You know what I mean?
The baton or
Man with like a walker and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and constant getting people to abandon their land. You know what I mean? A lot of American did this to people. American did that. America should stop doing this and that. Not once did he mention U.S. Not once did he mention U.S. or
So
the United
basic-
States or whatever.
Basically connecting it back to the de jure without making that seem to be the issue and not bringing up the fraud,
Right.
which is a part of the game too.
Which is the game too. That
Right.
what's he gonna say? He's a yellow envelope collector.
Yeah.
He's been paid off.
Yeah,
What's he
yeah.
gonna say? You know what I mean? No different than, like we say with Dr. York. Dr. York L and all that, but the guy was an R&B singer. I was an R&B singer, become head of something.
Right.
You know what I mean? How's Schwarzenegger become governor?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And,
You know, how did Ronald Reagan become president? Like,
Yeah.
you guys are actors and stuff.
Yeah, they're telling you
know,
what's good.
it's just telling you what's good. Like,
You know what I'm thinking?
what do people want? You know? Yeah,
I'm
what do they
realizing
want?
that, you see, as I said, I think we talked about this before, that there is an aspect of karma to this, right? So ultimately, them putting these actors in place is a way of validating the fraud.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when you look back and you say, well, you did this, they'll say, hey, you were following an actor.
Yeah, exactly.
This is on
You
you.
were following an R&B singer.
You
You were
were-
following a calypso singer.
This
Talking
was on
about
you.
the
You
revolution.
You knew who this guy was, right? So this is the way I think that they. This is the way I think that they sort of take the karmic debt off of themselves.
Yeah,
See what I mean?
right.
And on top of that, Farrakhan was a violinist in a band.
He was
That
up.
was me,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
Violinist.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah,
He's a violinist too. Yeah. So you know what I mean?
Getting entertained, man.
Which
Putting
you know,
putting it right out
playing
there.
you,
Right
literally
out there.
playing you. Nationality.
Nationality, the quality or character which arises from the fact of a person belonging to a nation or state.
All right. So belonging to a nation or state. So Noble Drew Ali told the Moors that they have a Moorish flag, they have a national headwear, they have a creed, they have a constitution, oh, they have a nationality card, right? So all these things, Moorish flag, national headwear, creed, constitution, nationality card, all tie to this thing called nation, right? And for the Moors, it's the Moorish nation. So as soon as we get individuals trying to make it seem like we don't have this, we have to create some new nation, right? But they're gonna agree that they have a nationality card, they're gonna agree that they have a constitution, they're gonna agree that they have a national headwear, and they're gonna agree that they have a flag or need a flag or whatever, right? All these things were already given to the people by Noble Drew Ali. So nobody needs to come and say we need any of these. Like just stick with the program of what Noble Drew Ali put down, right? And then Constitution, we're not talking about divine constitution and bylaws or whatever. We're talking about American Constitution. So people aren't confused or whatever. Right? So we have a constitution. We have a nationality card. Creed, national headwear, Moorish flag, all those things, nobody needs to say they have that for the redemption of the people, because it was already presented, right? And keep in mind as well that when we say Moorish, we're talking about pertaining to Moors, right? And we're also talking about Moroccan lineage, heritage, and whatever else comes with it. So we have Moorish pertaining to the Moors, and Moroccan lineage. And then our flag, which Noble Ali told us is Moorish, is the Moroccan flag, which lets us know that Moroccan and Moorish are relative terms, right? Along with Moor. So don't get distracted by Moorish being an adjective, because people will try to do that to get you off of your nationality. Tell you that, oh well, this is an adjective that you can't identify yourself as. No, we're not saying that we're only this. We're saying that we're Moorish American, right? Which Moorish American is a bloodline of Aboriginal indigenous people. Moorish American is not some title that was given to us by this man or whatever. This is a history, a lineage that he told us is 50,000, 10,000 to 50,000 years old over here. So this is a bloodline that we're tying ourselves to when we say our nationality is Moor or Moorish American or whatever. We're talking about a bloodline. We're not talking about the political perspective that is around today. That people say nationality and think that there isn't other stuff that goes with it. That you just say nationality and then that means that you're it. No, if you say that you're a nationality, you better have knowledge of all these things from a historical perspective. You have to have knowledge of the flag. You have to have knowledge of what your headwear is. You have to have knowledge of your creed. You have to have knowledge of your constitution, and you have to have knowledge of how you're going to display all of this to the world. How are you going to let other people know that you are what it is that you say that you are? When you say, my nationality is, how you demonstrate it? Because saying it and being it is two different perspectives, and majority of people get caught in saying it only. And when the time comes to being it, they're not being it in its full capacity because they really don't know it, how they're supposed to know it, right? The next part's of the nationality there.
Nationality determines the political status of the individual, especially in reference to allegiance, while domicile determines his civil status.
Right? Okay, so nationality determines political allegiance, right? Nationality doesn't determine political allegiance. Nationality determines bloodline. So this is where it goes back, like that's 4th edition. We say get earlier stuff because it's going to be different perspectives. The later the books get, the more stuff they start taking out. So now they're saying nationality is some political thing, but it's not really that. That's not the essence of nationality. Nationality is really about bloodline. Nationality is really about who's your mother's 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 mother. That's not political, right? That has nothing to do with politics.
Well, I realize now that that definition there is to validate the fraud of Canada.
Yeah, because it goes
Right.
into it after.
Right.
Because, to the extent that really you're connecting a fraudulent position of nationality and connecting that to a political position.
Right. Just like how people try to tie religion to a nationality.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
Which creates the injustices that the people get or whatever.
But
Because
ultimately,
their
that's
perspective is
all done to create a false platform on the true foundation, right?
Right.
It's like building a stage on top of the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There was more.
Yeah. Nationality arises either by birth or by naturalization.
So nationality arises by birth or naturalization.
No politics in that.
No, the naturalization is politics.
Right? So the fraud of nationality being political is in naturalization, right? Because there's Moors that say do this, naturalize. So in them saying that in order for you to be free, you have to naturalize, that is where the split in nationality comes from, whether it's birth or whether it's politics. Like when I heard brother Abdullah Bey talking about nationality in the UN declarations, why they say you can change your nationality is because they're looking at it like a political thing. They're looking at it as processes.
But I almost think that there's a duality to that, because I think that what they're also saying is that you can, so for lack of a better word, reclaim
Right.
your true nationality.
Yeah.
Or a true nationality.
Yeah.
So I can be being called so-called U.S.
Yeah.
as a nationality.
Yeah.
But I can then claim my United States or my Moroccan nationality.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I
But
see
then,
something
but see,
in there.
Yeah, and then where, further mental turmoil is U.S. and Canadian or whatever aren't nationalities.
That's right.
So they're not really changing their nationality if they have a corporate name or a corporate identifier.
They're actually just changing their political status.
They're actually changing their political status.
No, but I sense that what that is telling you that you can really get yourself off of the stage.
Right, you can get it. Yeah, you can tie yourself back to the land and get out of the play arena. Right.
But also, just one thing, and I don't know, you can touch on this. You see how it said that you can change, you're either done by naturalization or birth. I think even the concept of birth is an issue too. Because
Right.
really, it's not birth.
Right.
Right? It's really sort of your, what's the word? It would be the tie of your bloodline.
Right.
Right? That's what ties you to it. It's not your birth.
Right.
Right? Birth, they're still trying to put the certificate in there, right?
Right.
In my mind, I don't know.
Right. No, most definite. Okay. And on top of putting the birth certificate in there, by saying birth, they're putting in their admiralty jurisdiction as well.
That's right.
Right. So, this is where it comes into when we are presenting this information, that the information is presented like how we're doing it. You have the book there, we open it, we read whatever, we analyze what is being said so that we can come to a clear perspective for ourselves when we're starting to move forward with this. You know what I mean? So that it's not something handed to us as far as a perspective. Islam, right? The perspective isn't something handed to us. It's something that we're actually finding out for ourselves, figuring out. You know what I mean? Which is where the freedom comes from. Because if we say, if we just go with the definition, nationality comes from birth or naturalization, then the average individual, when they see people who naturalize or say that Moors are supposed to naturalize, then they're gonna go with that as the legitimate way that this is supposed to be done. When we go check Noble Drew Ali's literature, in that naturalize not mentioned anywhere in Noble Drew Ali's literature. The term's not even equal with anything that Noble Drew Ali said. But people are gonna use it in that perspective, like, yeah, he taught that way or whatever.
So this is 4?
Huh?
That's Black Laws 4?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, continue on.
According to Savgini, nationality is also used as opposed to territoriality for the purpose of distinguishing the case of a nation having no national territory. Sounds like politics to me.
Super politics.
I don't help the nation not have territory. So it says, according to Savgini, nationality is also used as opposed to territoriality for the purpose of distinguishing the case of a nation having no national territory. And then it says, e.g. the Jews.
Right? So nationality is also used in place of territoriality. Right? Now let's get to this quick fast. So in the previous back to basics classes, we dealt with status and jurisdiction. We talked about personam status and subject matter jurisdiction and personam jurisdiction, right? Nationality in relation to territorial jurisdiction. Territorial jurisdiction involves the very power, control, and authority itself to render a judgment or a decision. This involves matters of what is termed proof of jurisdiction. Of course, remember the inherent right of the nationals or citizens to challenge the jurisdiction of the courts at any juncture of a proceeding. An averment of jurisdiction is the writ and argument that would be placed into evidence or firmly asserted in such an instance. The supreme standard for establishing jurisdiction powers and the guideline for the binding limitations would be and is the Constitution for the United States Republic North America. The lawful standard of all delegated judicial authority is specified, stated, and prescribed by the Constitution law as per United States Republic Constitution Article 3. Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as Congress may from time to time establish. The judges of both the Supreme and inferior courts shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation, which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Section 2. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign state citizens and subjects, in all cases affecting ambassadors or ministers and consuls, and those in which a state shall be a party. The Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, and such exceptions and under such regulations as Congress shall make. The trial of all crimes except by cases of impeachment shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crimes shall have been committed. But when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such a place or places as the Congress by law have directed. So the territory, nationality being tied to territory, right, as they said in the case of the Jews, in them using Jews as a reference to speak with regard to territory being tied to nationality is part of the Jews' propaganda of Israel and taking over Palestine. Because if they're talking about territory and they're bringing up Jews, they should be also bringing up Palestinians. Because Jews wouldn't have a state if they didn't take away Palestine stuff. Right? So now that brings in a broader jurisdiction now as far as nationality and territory, because there's still Palestinians there. So now you have these people called Jews that are in that jurisdiction, and then you have these people called Palestinians that are in that jurisdiction, but the reference point of the jurisdiction they're using is Jews, not Palestinians. Right? And then Jew not being a nationality, but having that in the definition of nationality, they're talking about Jews, which isn't a nationality, which shouldn't even be used as the example. Right? But it's part of the propaganda that's used to, you know, whether even if we say them as cheating people's land, stealing people's land, without even going on the land and taking it. Creating a jurisdiction, setting up a jurisdiction where, you know, people are going to go with that. They're not going to challenge the Jew thing, so then that stands as law because it is a law dictionary, so if it's in there, then that means it must be legitimate. Right? There was more? You had something more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that's huge is that what they've done is they have distracted you. Because to me the bigger issue is what's going on here.
Right.
Canada ain't nothing. So who really is here, right? They're pretending as if Canada is a nation.
Right.
Canada should be the first thing up there, right? So what they've done is they've misdirected you to an area that they put conflict in, so you get lost in that.
Right.
When the real issue is this was our land, and someone came in here and is claiming Canada should be there too.
Right, which is the same game.
Which is exactly
same
but remember that because that's some small little area.
Yeah.
They want
It's
you
not
lost.
they
want you lost there.
Right.
They don't want you to understand that it's this huge landmass that's the real issue.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
They they misdirected you.
Right. Right. That was it for that? Get the naturalized too, since we're okay. So what Noble Jolly was doing by saying that we are a nation, he was tying us to our bloodline. He wasn't tying us to some political jurisdiction so we can have some benefits or whatever like that. He was tying us to tangible Aboriginal and indigenous culture that was already establishing and had established certain things in the Americas before European colonization. Right? Naturalized?
Yo, listen, after this, these boys can't be going around. This is madness. I'll read both of them. There's naturalization and naturalized. Naturalization, the act of adopting a foreigner and clothing him with privileges of a native citizen.
Right, so anybody who's lineage in America goes back to Europe, they should be naturalizing because they're foreigners. Somebody classified as Negro, black, colored is not a foreigner. They're indigenous to the land, but they've been misrepresented as these foreign names. So when Moors say naturalized, they're going from the perspective that Negro, black, colored are foreign nations. When we know that Negro, black, colored are not nations. So clearly these people are not foreigners. They're labeled under these titles, they're labeled under these misnomers, but the misnomers don't make them foreign to this land. They're Aboriginal indigenous people that have been mislabeled. So they don't have to, quote unquote, naturalize. The second part of that is that in order for them to naturalize, they would have to declare an oath of amnesty. And the oath of amnesty is a pardon for slaves, which these Negro, black, colored people aren't that either. So on top of them not being foreigner, right? Because remember, this is the angle that they're going on is that these people came from somewhere else, so they have to be naturalized, right? They weren't slaves either, so they can't be foreigners. So they're gonna go with your Negro, black, colored to make you a foreigner. If that doesn't work, then they're gonna bring in the slave thing to say you're a foreigner because you came from somewhere else, and now that you're here, now you have to naturalize. But they're not foreigners because they weren't Slavics. They're not Slavic people. They're Aboriginal indigenous people that got tied up in the slavery game. They're Aboriginal indigenous people that have been denationalized. They're Aboriginal indigenous people that lost their birthright. They're Aboriginal indigenous people that got taken outside of the constitutional fold. But they're not foreign to over here. So as soon as we hear these things, you know, Moors naturalize, and then Moors don't challenge that, just like how we're doing. Just look it up in a dictionary. First thing, so for foreigners, okay, well, obviously this doesn't apply to these people because they're not foreigners. But they're going to continue to push that idea because the naturalization process, there could be a fee attached to that. Which now makes it illegal because, you know, if they're talking about there's nationality, but they're naturalizing and then charging a fee, then that's obviously not nationality because nationality is free. And why would you pay?
Naturalize. To confer citizenship upon an alien. To make a foreigner the same in respect to the rights and privileges as if he were a native citizen or subject.
Right, so once again, naturalize is for foreigners. Naturalization is for foreigners. So anybody who is not of the Moorish bloodline that wants to be tied to Moors, they have to naturalize. And then they would be conferred citizenship as if they were a native. They would be granted privileges. And then this is where U.S gets their concept of granting privileges with licenses or whatever. Because really what they're doing is adopting, they're claiming that they're Aboriginal indigenous because they say that they're American, right? And now that they're quote unquote American, they're gonna naturalize anybody who comes here. So now they can be part of quote unquote American life and join the dream of the whatever.
American dream.
Right? When that's not American dream, it's a U.S nightmare.
Yeah.
Like it's a U.S nightmare. It's the U.S that they're getting away from when they even say that they're doing this. If they say naturalize, right? If they say if a European says I'm gonna denounce my U.S. citizenship, right? Then they don't have jurisdiction to be here. They don't have jurisdiction to be here as a U.S citizen. But if they denounce that position, the only place that you hear them tying themselves to is always back to some European country. And the only way that they can have or be conferred citizenship, which now makes this political now, right? So for Aboriginal indigenous people, nationality is bloodline. For foreigners, nationality is political citizenry. Because the national is going to be the one that is going to do this process. A foreigner can't do this. Somebody who's not Aboriginal can't do this process. Which is again why Moors say that they can do this. Naturalize others. But they're not supposed to be naturalizing their own. They're only supposed to be doing that to foreign people. For all the foreigners out there, Europeans, this is the perspective that you have to look at this. The European can't say, I'm tied to the Moor, so I'm allodial. Because this doesn't tie to somebody that was conferred citizenship. This is only tied to somebody who's Aboriginal and Indigenous, right? European can't say, my nationality is more. European has it, I naturalized and became a citizen of Morocco, or became an ipso jure Moorish subject, or I was adopted into the family of the Moroccan nation. But they can't say that they're it. More. They are granted certain, because they already have a nationality, so they don't even have nothing to worry about. Right? Europeans have a nationality. If there's nothing wrong with being European. Right? You know, there's nothing wrong with being Scottish, German, French, whatever. Those are national names. So if that is what they come out of, and then they come into this information, they're still that. They're just adopting this from a political perspective in order to be able to exercise certain rights, because you realize that, you know, if I have a license, they're going to rate me every month, year, whatever, to get whatever. But if I get with the Moors, then that might just be one process. I don't even have to pay nothing else after that. Right? But it's where, because again, with nationality, talking about allegiance, where does your allegiance lie? Does your allegiance lie with private corporation, or does your allegiance lie with Aboriginal and Indigenous people who are the real exercisers of the government that people belong to, right? So nationality and naturalized are relative only if it's by Aboriginal and Indigenous people doing those processes. If it's not Aboriginal and Indigenous people doing the process, and if naturalized is being done by a foreigner, that's a contradiction. But a foreigner can't confer citizenship on a foreigner in land that's not theirs, on top of that. Maybe in Europe they could do that, but here they can't do that, right? So it's clear that individuals that speak from this perspective, making our people naturalize, are robbing them of what they're actually supposed to be getting inherently. Which, if we're saying that we're the Aboriginal and Indigenous people, you know, what we're doing with doing classes is carrying on the oral tradition, which is Aboriginal and Indigenous culture. It's not class, like this is us exercising our Aboriginal culture, because Aboriginal people are oral. We relay our culture to each other. It's not, you're not gonna go to some native tribe and find some book on natives or whatever. It's not, it doesn't go like that. You know what I mean? They'll make you drink some ayahuasca, go talk to that tree over there, let the tree tell you what your birthright is. Right? You know? But the main thing that we're bringing these things up is so that people can realize that when we say nationality as Moors, it's a bloodline that we're connecting ourselves to, an Aboriginal Indigenous bloodline. That's the link. That's the unification. Speaking about unification, one of the Moors at the Million Man March put up a picture of him and a quote-unquote Indian chief shaking hands. And he said, the Indian chief said that, yeah, we're Moors. This is the chief. So this isn't something that our people should be running from, you know what I mean? Like they don't want to be this. Because of whatever they hear about Moors. Like regardless of what they hear, whatever it is, that's not supposed to deter them from getting down with this information. Because this is who they are by blood. And it's why Noble Drew Ali stressed to Moors even, that you can't change your descendant nature. Who you are, who your ancient foremothers and forefathers are, you are today. And you can't do anything about that. That's what it is. We'll go to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descendant nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. So when the UN Declaration tells you that you can change your nationality, it's not a change from the bloodline perspective. It's a change politically. That's the only way that you can change your nationality, politically. Because if you say that you're a subject of the Moors, you're still whatever your descendancy is. You're still whatever bloodline you are, you're still that. All you're doing is you're getting some, benefits from being tied to people who have benefits to give. Right? These holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the uniting of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science of North America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all temples of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, that they will learn to open their meeting and guide it according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. Every temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the Holy Prophet and the Grand Temple. So every subordinate temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under their covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and create their own laws and customs. And then that's where we had nationality, and was talking about state, nation or state. Because the state would be the jurisdiction that these Moors are in, that have created their own laws and customs. Now that's the state. And the state now is not NY, NJ, ON, AB. That's not the state anymore if Moors come together and create their own customs and laws. Now that becomes the state. And anybody who says that they're in the jurisdiction of that thing better belong to that. If they're not, then they're stateless. Right? I, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, was sent by the great God Allah to warn the Asiatics of America to repent from their sinful ways before the great and awful day which is sure to come. The time has come when every nation must worship under his own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. So because we strayed away from our ancient foremothers and forefathers, creeds and principles, we were enslaved, or we were classified as stateless people. So all we're doing with proclaiming our nationality, declaring our nationality, is correcting this wrong that happened. And when we correct the wrong, after we correct the wrong, now we're going to go and exercise as how we should have been exercising, with nationality being intact, with nationality being our perspective. Because without this, like people want to tell Negro, black, colored people, just do this or do that, because the law of whatever. But if they don't have this, whatever you're telling them is irrelevant, because they're going to go try the things that people are telling them to do, and the individuals that they're engaging know that there's already been a standard established, that they can't, there's no you know, black today, and then tomorrow you're going to be a Moor to get out of some taxes, and then the day after you get out of it, then you go back to being black. That doesn't work like that, right? Either you're this completely, or you're in the process of being this completely, but there's no in and out of that. There's no you're a Moor and then you're gonna be a Moor, and then you switch back later, and it doesn't go like that, right? There was one thing on that I had for us to listen to. Was there anything else in there? Or no? All right. Any questions or comments before we continue on?
Where could I get one of those? The Quran.
We got any more Qurans?
No.
Okay, so we gotta get some Qurans. For right now, you can just Google Holy Quran of Moor Science Temple, and it'll come up, and you can just use that for now till we get some more Qurans in. Or you can go online, Canaanland Moor's Holy Quran audio, and we have a audio version of it, so you can download that as an MP3. You know what I mean, and just listen to that. Yeah, so let's just see this. And for all the people out there, the video's freezing, you already know what's going on. You already know they're gonna do their stuff. So we're just gonna listen to a little bit of Taj Tariq Bey, Nationality is the Key to Freedom.
No rights can be sold to you in a package, which immediately shows that you have no concept, no respect for governmental principles. At that time, it's rejected. You'll say, oh man, that failed, I gotta go buy another paper. And you get caught up in that paper chase. What it really means, if you understand what that really means, this concept, that's all the documents. All the documents peripheral to this are only supportive. They're supportive of the activation of this.
Right, so what he's referring to is the nationality card. And the fact that when we say nationality, and then we say, here's the card is just an example. The card is just so there's something to show. But the real is what's presenting the card, not the card. You know what I mean? The real is what wrote the paper or the writ, not the submitting of the writ, and then somebody's going to take this and read it, and now I know that they knew you're a Moor before you gave them the paper, before the card, right? It's just going further with it by having the card or whatever, because this is the society that we're living in. People have cards, people have documents, papers, or whatever like that. You should have something to show to prove your claim, just like anything else. If somebody said, you know what I mean, that person violated me or whatever, okay, well, where's the proof of that? So that it could be presented. And then when you present the proof, prior to presenting the proof, a situation actually happened already, which is setting up this thing that you're now presenting the proof for. So the people have to get to the state where they realize what nationality is first, and then go out and get cards, papers, tags, or whatever like that, because without the nationality being here first, without them digesting it, that, okay, if I say I proclaim my nationality, tomorrow you shouldn't be exercising anything tomorrow if you proclaim your nationality today. Because this process is a process that is supposed to be cleaning up the mental slavery, which Noble Drew Ali said in the 1900s that we have that now, back then. So if we read Noble Drew Ali's words that we had mental slavery back then, but we're reading that today and it says now, still 100 years later, then obviously he knew that we weren't going to be out of mental slavery back then. So he worded it so that when we read it today, even as conscious Moors, recognize that we're not completely out of mental slavery because we know now and we beat tickets and we or whatever and we go get taxes and we're still in mental slavery. We're not out yet. There's still aspects of mental slavery that, because it's not fully developed, you know what I mean? It's developed from a siphon perspective. We're not getting the full pipe, right? We're getting a diversion from the source. We're getting a sample. And then we're taking the sample as the all and be all when it's not, we're not even at the all and be all yet. It's like with the brother we were talking about earlier, that was the deputy, right? The deputy sheriff or something like that, right? That's not that anymore. And then he's trying to get Moors to get together to build with the colonizer so that the colonizer could see, you know, what this is about, right? And really it's not about us going to whoever, it's about that individual taking what he knows and giving it to the people if they need it that bad. If he recognizes that there's an error and he says, okay, I was an ex whatever, he's supposed to take whatever he has an ex whatever, just like people who we know that are ex-military. They're going to take everything that they have as an ex-military whatever and apply it to Moors so Moors could have a different perspective. You're not going to tell Moors, go, yeah, you guys should go to the military and put them on to what, because, you know, I'm ex-military and, you know, I know that they need to know this because they're not taught this information, whatever. No, that's what that individual's for, you know. But if they're not looking at birthright as theirs, if they're looking at birthright as a process that they have to do and they have to fill this out and get this sealed and get this in order to be who they say that they are, then they don't have the correct perspective.
This is passive, isn't it? And it's a statement that's on here, right? Passive. These lights, these glass chambers with this tungsten steel in it, etc., and includes electrons and activated mercury and stuff. You put electricity to it, negative, positive pole, those electrons start bouncing around, heating up, and they create light, right? That's a vehicle for these chemical metal reactions and temperature reactions that create the light, come from resistance, am I correct? But they themselves are passive. You must apply them for them to have meaning of existing. With if the same metal that's there, same component parts are there, if that filament breaks, you toss it because it has no use. Because it itself has no value. What it does is the value. It itself has no value. What it does, if you're conscious, is the value. So the value is abstract.
Right? So the actual thing itself, the card, the papers, the Moorish plates, Moorish passport, whatever, those things are useless if the people's mentality is not sure. If the people check absolute in there.
Absolute?
Yeah. If the people don't see their nationality as absolute, then it's not going to exist for them. They have to recognize that it actually is something. Like it's actually something that you know, like how Drew Ali said, The wars can't be told in words. Like, we can't even talk about what the war is because it's spiritual. Has nothing to do go out there and have weapons or whatever. That's not really the war. The war is really mental. You know, the revolution will not be televised because it's a mental revolution. It's not a revolution going out there doing something. Cars and stuff like that are going to be passing there as cars are being used. You know what I mean? A few years they might have flying ones or whatever. Right? You have absolute? Yeah.
Absolute, complete, perfect, final, without any condition or encumbrance, as an absolute bond, simplex obligatio, in distinction from a conditional bond, unconditional, complete, perfect, and perfect in itself, without relation or dependence on other things or persons. Instruction as to an absolute gift, cases, irrevocable, final, gift, inter vios by husband, president and directors of Manhattan, in some more cases.
Right, okay. So absolute is complete. So we have to be complete in that. That's why, you know, that's why Moors get injured, because they're not complete before they start doing things. Right? They're doing things with not everything lined up properly. They're doing things half-ass. When, you know, if majority of Moors, if they, before they did something, if they took an extra year before they did it, they would be further off than if they did it and then a year later then go do it after they I got kidnapped, I got beat up, I didn't learn, let me just study some more. If they would have just humbled before they even did it that time when they got beat up and said, okay, you know what, yeah, I want to do this, but let me just hold on a second, they would get further. But, you know, our people have been conditioned based in you know, using their emotions against them. So they do that to themselves most times. Hear something, listen to some Moor say something that they did, and then figure, oh, he did that, well, I'm a Moor, I'm gonna just go out and do that. But it doesn't really go like that, because that individual is their exercise was based on what they knew. Exactly. They didn't do it because somebody said or whatever. It's like a good example is two good examples, Brother Alim El Bey and Brother Obashango El, right? Those are Moors who deal with UCCs and all that, right? They never got into UCCs because somebody said, where it works for them. They got into UCCs because they said that they're going to take their own time or whatever like that, and they're going to put some study into what that is and how does it work, and, you know what I mean, applying it. They themselves did that. So now, people who hear something, you know what I mean, they think that, oh, he just said form 577, fill out, okay, so I'll just go get form 577 or fill that out, send that in, and then yeah, now I'm where he is. That's not how it runs. Because it's about knowing. It's about exercising if you know. Now, yeah, you might know, exercise, and not get as far as you wanted to go. You know what I mean? Because, you know, it's everybody's birthright. It's not for somebody to say, well, you shouldn't, and you know what I mean? If the risk is you exercise certain things, you know, you might get kidnapped or whatever, you willing to take that, then hey, you know, exercise. Don't get mad at the information, oh, this didn't work, you taught me wrong stuff, I can't do this because, you know, I don't have the right stuff, then, right? If you're gonna exercise based on, you know what it is you're about to partake in, positive and negative. You know that if, you know what I mean? When I get stopped and I say, here's my nationality card, instead of a license, and I don't have, and I got plates on that come from them. I got ownership that's theirs. I got insurance that's theirs, but I don't have a license. So I'm just giving you this instead or whatever. Know that you might, it might not go how it's supposed to go because they're looking for, okay, well, if you got the plates and you got the whatever, then you should have the license. Now, if the plate's expired and there's no insurance, and then that's different. Because you're showing that you're tying yourself away from them by not having any of their stuff. So if you show a nationality card or whatever, you're showing it based on your knowledge of, I know that I don't need a license. That's why I don't have plates. That's why I don't have all the other stuff. But if you have all the other stuff and then you're going to show the nationality card, you're taking a chance because that's just you on your own dealing with these colonists. Has nothing to do with anybody else. What they say, what they told you, information that they gave you, advice they gave you, all that is irrelevant. Because at the time of exercising your right, it's, do you know the truth about your nationality and birthrights? If you do, then you're gonna have success. Because there are people who have it as a concept, have it as an abstract, and they have papers, cards, and all that stuff, and then they're successful. Whether it's claiming land, suing somebody, whatever, anything, exercise right to travel, whatever. There's mores in every aspect that they're getting through with doing certain things against what the U.S. Canada Corporation says to do. There's mores that are successful, right? Any questions, comments? Where are we at, 209? Dissolving the nigger industry. Dissolving the nigger industry involves a process that takes place by and through the operative nature of consciousness and conscious action. When the truth of nationality and birthrights and the true history of the Moorish nation of North America, the North Gate, is exposed to the historically blind and ignorant descendants of the ancient Moabite Moors. These necessary, dedicated social, spiritual, and political activities begin to accelerate the process of reversing the polarity which the European Inquisitionists and colonizers and their low-lying, pseudo-religious sorcerers have foisted upon the naive and blindly trusting Aboriginal peoples of the world. We Moors must display practice and maintain love and patience for the victims of the nigger sorcery. We Moors must display practice and maintain love and patience, for the victims of the nigger sorcery are the greatest blind faith defenders of it. And this is the charge and responsibility of all conscious Moorish Americans. The exploiting vampires have, do, and will extract and suck the vital energies and essences of and from the natural people, as long as the natural people agree to the false law and the false culture which the colonial inquisitionists have foisted upon them in the Western Hemisphere and the world. Okay? So, love and patience for the victims of nigger industry, because they are blind of the fact of what their nationality is. They are blind of the fact of nationality card. They're blind of the fact of creed, that they got a prophet, that he brought them everything it takes to save a nation and told them save themselves with the stuff that he brought. They had all these so-called leaders come. Marcus Garvey came, told them about nationality. John Henry Clark came, told them about nationality. Dr. Ben came, told them about nationality. Everybody came and told them about who they are. But there's no moving in that direction. There's only few moving in that direction. And the few that are moving in that direction have an obligation to go do something to assist these blind people in, walking. Right? This is why I personally, I'm not going to go bus ride and all that stuff, take plane or whatever like that, go all the way to Washington for no march. Like forget all that crap, right? But anybody surrounding area of that says that their Moors should have been there, so that there's a presence. Just because, it ain't nothing for you to go over there, have 1,000 flyers, give out 1,000 flyers about Noble Drew Ali, whatever like that, and go home. You're not there to go see Farrakhan and listen to him or nothing like that. You're going there just to get some information to the people because you're close. You're in the vicinity.
And the zombies came out, so.
And zombies came out that day. And no different than when they have these riots and stuff like that. You know what I mean? From a esoteric perspective, it's feeding time. When Asiatics like that come out to something, it's feeding time. You know what I mean? They're not paying attention to, like you look at because remember, Washington D.C. was designed by Ben Banneker. So there's energy centers in that area of Washington D.C. Right? There's certain places, that's why they have obelisk where it is, because that's an energy center. That's why they have Lincoln Monument where it is, because that's an energy center. That's not just, we're just gonna put this here because it's in the path of whatever so people can see it and whatever like that. That's rituals that they're doing. Whole place is based on rituals. They got aerial views of Washington D.C. They got owls and stuff like that in buildings. They got 5-point stars. They got constellations. They got, just do your research on Benjamin Banneker designing Washington D.C. Yeah, right. And they'll tell you, they don't even hide it, that that buildings are in specific location for specific reasons. You know what I mean? So the idea is to when these things happen, and this is why it was like when we look at our people being involved in these things but not having any knowledge of anything esoteric or whatever, they just become, and it's ironic. Keep in mind, all these people are Moors, right? Keep in mind that this is Thanksgiving weekend, right? And they're utilizing that autumn fall frequency to keep these people in a fallen state. They could have utilized doing something like this in the summer when the people's vibration is on high. But you have it at a time like now when the people's vibration is going into hibernation. What's people going to use, even if they had an answer for or else? Ain't nobody doing nothing when winter's coming around the corner. What are they going to do with exercising or else? You know what I mean? Because even Drew Ali said, you better pray that you don't make your plight in the winter. You better not be in the winter that you got to go talk about they're shutting stuff down and all that stuff if you got to move somewhere or whatever. Unless you're in Florida or something, doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But where we're at, better have your stuff in order. Because when these people start saying, flick switches, shut lights and stuff like that, and it's winter time, summertime, we're all right, summertime. You know what I mean? But us out here, we want to make sure that we have certain things in order. You know what I mean? And the main thing that you want to have in order is your spirit right. Because that will get you out of a lot of things that, the physical might not necessarily get you out of like that. Because you're going to have to persevere if certain things happen. Do you have the perseverance? You know what I mean? Was there any other stuff? Anybody else? Let me see if there's any questions that we got. Any questions or comments? Brother Mark. Oh, yeah.
Is that important?
Yeah, yeah.
And you want to get here for 12 to 3:30?
Yeah, but maybe even before that.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Peace, what's up?
Last week, you have anything from the
Still didn't receive the stuff yet.
okay.
Pictures?
Yeah.
I want to show the
Oh, you want to
pictures
do an actual show?
I have
Okay,
to show
okay,
the
okay. All right,
pictures.
cool.
for
all
my
right.
trip to East.
So questions that we got, does your nationality only stem from your mother's side? In a pure sense, that's the only way, right? From the mother. As soon as you start dealing with genealogy through the father or whatever, you're tying yourself to the patriarchy of Romans. Because that's their perspective. Father, Son, Holy Ghost is some invisible, whatever like that, right? You want to not be ashamed or distracted by what you find out when you start doing research. Because like in our family, they got Asians in our family, slanty eye people in our family. So it's not a thing where our perspective has to be who are the Aboriginal indigenous people of the world and who are the foreigners to the world. Once we tie ourselves to recognizing that we are the foundation, right? Once we recognize that our people are the foundation of all these land masses, when we start doing our research of the descendancy of our mother, we'll realize that it's always going to tie back to some Aboriginal indigenous culture. Always. Wherever it is that we go. So if we look at Aboriginal indigenous culture, not even that. I was talking with somebody last night about this or this morning or something. When we look at nature, bees are matriarchal. And everybody knows we need them. Ants matriarchal. Right? There's no ant that's not a worker for the queen. There are no king ants. There's only a queen. And everybody else works for the queen. That's how they survive.
Same thing with bees.
For all these millions of years that they've been around, they've been matriarchal. Never once did a male ant say, hey, how about we go over there and start a new ant colony or whatever, but have male ants as the head. It ain't going on like that. It's against nature. Their stuff will fall before it even gets built up. Because everything comes from the mother. Everything comes from that side. So once we say, what's our nationality? And then you do your research and you find out that your great-great-grandmother was European. Then that's what your nationality is. No big deal. Do you want to have some political citizenship? Find Moors, and then start studying with them and learn about this thing called nationality and birthrights. And apply it. Even if you're European, because there's even Europeans who we know that they exercise their right. And they're exercising their right from the perspective of the mother is the Moorish nation. That's the mother of nations. So if I'm European and I want to have any type of standing at law, I better be tied to a nation that's matriarchal. So I can be granted certain privileges, which it's not going to be the full capacity like how you see the actual representatives of that nation exercising, but it's going to be enough that you don't have to, deal with these colonizers out here. It's going to be enough that's going to assist them in, get out of their mortgage, get out of their car payment or whatever, under the privilege of saying, I'm tied to the Moorish nation. Yeah, we're European. Yeah, well, Europe comes from Europa, who's a Phoenician queen. So even as a European, Scottish, whatever, it still ties back to being related to the Moors, because Moors created them. So there's no escape for anybody to be down with Moors. And when you check the record, you'll find out. If you go check, Germany, Italy, all these places, they might out front say that, yeah, Italy and all these things, but when you go to their house or whatever like that, they got Moroccan stuff, they got blackamoor heads and all that type of stuff. They got the coat of arms in framed freaking stuff with blackamoor head on it. But they're European though. They got Queen of Sheba at their house, and they got carpet with whatever on it from Kemet and all that type of stuff, because that's their culture too. Right? Because who created them? Dark-skinned people. So you're gonna go with some Romans, or you're gonna go with some people who had the intellectual fortitude to, do gene splicing or whatever. I'll go with them, even if I'm a hybrid. I'm gonna still go with them before I go with some Romans as my forefathers or whatever, if I'm European. Wouldn't make sense to go with anybody else, because they're subordinate to who the true heirs are, who the real descendants. And the only people who have the power of exercising the rights in a full capacity would be the heirs or the beneficiaries. If you're not an heir or a beneficiary, you're just a partial. You know what I mean? You're not absolute. You're not complete. You're not perfect. Right? So nothing's wrong with like you have like the email was from somebody who they traced their history back, and then their history is traced back that their descendants were from Chile, right? But then when they check the descendancy as far as their bloodline, it goes back to Spaniards and Moors in Spain. Like that's where it goes back to. So, the perspective is, well, they're not Moors, because Spaniards aren't, that's not our stock, right? But they had relations, no different than when we look at that time and we say, 711 to 1492, the Moors ruled Spain, right? Or Moors ruled Al-Andalus, which became Spain. There was Europeans living under the rule of the Moors in Spain, Asiatics, Africans, people from different religions or whatever like that. It wasn't just, Muslims only. There were rainbow of people living under the rule of the Moors. And what were they doing? They were exercising based on the limited perspective of this Moorish theme that, they might have only got this much out of it, and then they took that and did whatever it is that they could with what they got. And they were comfortable with the little bit that they got, because that's how vast this is. Like, this is so vast that people got slivers of this, and they took the sliver that they got and they took this and did numerous amounts of things with it. Whereas you have our people that it's their stuff and they don't even want it. And it's theirs. By blood. Talk to sister from Jamaica. Talking about, yeah, about Aboriginal indigenous people of Jamaica. Yeah, I know about 90 of the Maroons and all this stuff or whatever. That's why you call yourself Jamaican. Well, well, they live in the bush and, Maroons are, what's bush have to do with your Aboriginal indigenous?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not a qualifier. Because they live in the bush, then they're native, so that's not you because you don't live in the bush. Well, you know what I mean? Like, there's native people who are around here. You know what I mean? Not all people, Garvey was a Maroon. He didn't live in no bush or whatever. He went on boats, went around the world and all that. He was Maroon, direct descendant of Maroon. But he wasn't playing that, Maroon means, bush skirt and all that type of stuff like that. Spearing fish and stuff. You know what I mean? Right? The other question, if a contract is signed under duress, coercion, and misrepresentation, then wouldn't it be a void contract? Yes, the contract's void if it's under threat, duress, and coercion. But again, it comes back to what's the status of the individual that did that contract.
What do you mean by under threat?
So if for example, if I tell you, you better get a birth certificate or I'm going to take your children because I'm children's services.
Right. Okay.
And you sign it, that's under threat. Duress and coercion. Actually, you want to check those up there? Threat, duress, and coercion.
All of them?
Yeah. So get them all up right now. Let's check one. Just pass that one back. Let's check. Somebody do threat, someone do duress, and coercion.
I'll do coercion. I'll do threat.
Okay, so any time that you are anytime you feel, what's the word, pressured, if you're pressured in any way whatsoever, if you feel pressured, if the implication implies pressure, if you feel any sort of uncomfortableness when engaging somebody, that could be considered threat, duress, and coercion. And once you have that feeling, anything that you do under those circumstances should void that contract. The problem is that, just like reserving your rights, people want to do it after the fact, when it's supposed to be something that was already part of who you are. So if there's a contract that exists and somebody's trying to use the contract against you, and you're saying that, threat, duress, and coercion for this contract, or this contract was established in threat, duress, and coercion. If you didn't state that on the contract, then they're going to go with that threat, duress, and coercion didn't exist, because if it existed, you would have put it in the contract. Right? You have, anybody got one of them? Yeah, starting Captain.
Yeah. Duress. Strictly the physical confinement of a person or the detention of a contracting party's property. In the field of torts, duress is considered a species of fraud in which compulsion takes the place of deceit in causing injury.
So duress, so injury, physical detention, right? If you have a contract to drive and you don't have insurance, and then they cancel your license or whatever, and now you can't go anywhere because you're detained at your house, right? That's duress. Because they're confining you. They're confining you to a jurisdiction under the guise of a contract that's supposed to be about being able to move. But they took that away. Right? Now, the other part of it is having the knowledge that they can't do this if you don't claim to be that name that they're using as the detainee. Because the detainee is an all capital letters fiction that's not you. So as soon as people get into issues with colonizers, and colonizers put them in a position of being under duress, right? If you didn't present to them who you are from the start, if you were straw man, and then you got caught into something, and then now you want to be more, you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah.
Because that was supposed to be presented at the door. That's supposed to be the first thing that was presented. That's the first thing that's supposed to be conceptualized. That when I sign this thing right here, I gotta keep in mind I'm not that. I'm just signing on behalf of that in order for these corporate people to have something to engage me, the natural person, with. So we're gonna use these instruments. But as soon as there's no reservation of rights, there's no acknowledgement that this is done under threat, duress, and coercion, then you're going to fall under the jurisdiction of that thing no matter what happens. And then once you fall under the jurisdiction of that thing, you're in the jurisdiction. Doesn't mean that you can't get out of it, but it's going to be a battle to get out of it, because you're in the jurisdiction. You're not at the start anymore. The thing has already taken toll to where, you know, people are in the court for the sentencing. Now they want to be Moors when they're getting sentenced. You should have been Moors before you even got to court. You should have been Moor before the situation even happened or whatever. This is why Drew Ali said, all old business, leave it as it is, and all new stuff, do in your free national name. But then people don't start new stuff. They want to keep the old stuff and try to switch the old stuff to new. They say, oh, well, you know, my license is about to expire, so when it renews, I'm going to do it in my new name. Yeah, that it's the same license. All you do is your name from the beginning. Well, I didn't know about that. All right, well, keep not knowing about it. Now what you do is you reserve your rights when you get that thing. Because you're going to have to get it if you want to, you know, you want the privilege of driving, you're going to have to contract with them, because those are the only people that give that privilege. But you can reserve your rights on it so that when you are exercising in that jurisdiction, whatever they do as far as their threat, duress, coercion, you know what I mean, doesn't stick to you like, you know what I mean, oh, that's me, they took my license, I can't drive now because they took my license. But then, you know, half the people, they still go drive with the expired license. And never get stopped or nothing like that. And they never even think, hey, you know, I'm actually exercising right to travel right now because I'm not using the license that they gave me, and I never get stopped or whatever, and I'm able to do whatever on a suspended license. Okay, so clearly you don't need the license. You know what I mean? But then again, you know, if they stop you, you better have something to show or whatever like that, because they're going to use that contract, right? And again, it's everything is done under threat, duress, and coercion in assumed colonial jurisdiction. When people violate and are in land that's not theirs and they want to exercise certain governmental powers, everything they do is done under threat, duress, and coercion. Telling people, you know, go vote, here's the date, time. If you miss it, then your vote don't count or whatever like that. That's threat, duress, and coercion. So it's not supposed to be, they can't give orders of what the people's rights are. They're corporation. Where they get the power as a private corporation to tell people they have to do something or not do something, right? So that was duress. Next one. Threat.
A communicated intent to inflict physical or other harm on any person or on property. A declaration of an intention to injure another or his property by some unlawful act. State versus Schweppe, Minnesota, then there's like a whole bunch of numbers. And it says, a declaration of intention or determination to inflict punishment, loss, or pain on another or to injure another by the commission of some unlawful act.
Right.
U.S. versus Dawla.
So how they get away with threatening and not getting anything for it is because they're implying that you're the threat. They're saying that we are here to protect and serve or whatever. That guy is a threat because he's Negro, black, whatever. We heard about these guys, you know what I mean? They say that they're sovereign and they jump out cars, shoot people and all that stuff. So those guys are a threat. When the real threat is them. The real threat is not the person with the rights. The real threat is the individual who's about to violate the individual rights. And the individual rights has to recognize that that's what's happening. That's why they say, where's your license? Because only slaves have those. So if you're a slave and then you give the license, you know, and then you're still acting belligerent after you give the license that you went and applied for. It's not something that, you know, slave master, you have to carry this around all the time or whatever like that. We went, took the form off the wall or whatever, went, signed it, filled it out, and then gave it in to be a slave. To be under the jurisdiction of threats, constant threats, right? We put ourselves there. So it's recognizing that the idea of the threat definition, speaking from somebody feeling that injury is going to happen to them or whatever like that, that's on the so-called highwayman, you know, clerk at the store or whatever like that, whatever. Because what's been ingrained in people is that, you know, all we do is burn stuff down when we get mad. All we do is resort to violence when we get mad. Which is why Drew Ali said, you know, intelligent tone. Go to people in City Hall, ask them in an intelligent tone, they'll tell you what's up. Right? Just like with the situation. You know, you go to City Hall, talk to them, they'll let you know what's up. Right? If you don't deal with them in an intelligent tone, then they're going to assume that you're a threat. And once they assume that you're a threat, because, you know, the status quo is that people who look like us or whatever, you know, you know what I mean? Those are the guys that are in the hood with guns and all that type of stuff, you know what I mean? That's why Drew Ali told Moors, you have affairs, you have a turban, Moors, look your best when you go out there, because, you know, by looking your worst, you're tying yourself to all the cut off shorts and cut off shirt people who are slaves out there. You're going to be grouped with them just because the imagery, the dress code is not different than what they normally deal with. So to eliminate being a threat, it's come back again to nationality and us being ourselves. Because Moors aren't a threat. Moors are the founders of civilization. People lived under beautiful circumstances when the Moors ruled. People weren't living in what they're living in today. There was no welfare and stuff like that when the Moors ruled. There was no welfare in Kemet. No bums walking around and stuff like that. Like, everybody was living comfortable because, you know, their standard of living wasn't. Their standard of living was, you know, food, clothes, shelter, and then that's it. You know, you don't need no more than that. You know what I mean? Right? Coercion?
Before I read coercion, another thing I just realized when Crossing Over he said speaking in an intelligent tone, he didn't just mean the way you were speaking. He mean, I'm putting together now that he meant like know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like have a complete understanding of what you're saying as you're saying it.
Yep.
I'll just mention that. Coercion, compulsion, constraint, compelling by force or arms.
Right. So compelling by force or arms. Right, notice another lesson from our brother Abdullah Bey that we have to study etymology. Notice that they didn't say firearms. They said arms. Because firearm is different than an arm. When you start talking about firearms, you're talking about things that are licensed. Arms aren't licensed. People have a right to bear arms. People have a right to bear weapons. People who have a right to bear firearms, they have a right to bear arms. That's a constitutional right. So as soon as they start talking about, sidearm, firearm, know that they're contracted people. And if they're contracted, then they should be bonded. And if they're not bonded, then definitely that's coercion that they're putting on you when they say, you got a license? And they walk up to the car like this. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing when they do certain things. It's not that they don't know. They know, just go get the handbook, the police handbook. They tell you in there. Everything that they do is public record. Why? Because they're public servants. So everything that they do have to make public so the public knows what to expect from these people. And most of the time, they're not exercising what they're supposed to be exercising because, everybody thinks that's police handbook. Why do I need that? It says their stuff on it. So I don't need that. I'm not trying to be no police officer. Yeah, but you're dealing with them. They're dealing with you. You better know what their obligation is. You know what I mean? It was like Amor had a situation with, same thing, one of these highwaymen coming and trying to violate whatever. I thought it was your thing with the hat. Not being in uniform or whatever. Was
Yes,
yours?
yeah.
Right? Same thing. Right? If he's going to say that he's public servant, official, or whatever like that, then there's a certain protocol. If anything is violated in what they're supposed to be doing, then they can be considered exercising under threat, duress, and coercion when they engage you. But we have to be the ones to say that up front. The threat, duress, and coercion can't happen, and then we're saying, oh, this is threat, duress, and coercion, you can't do that or whatever. We're supposed to establish that from the jump, like, hey, you don't got your hat on or whatever, oh, you're dealing with me under threat. Oh, you got a weapon right there? Is that an arm or is that a firearm? Oh yeah, this is my firearm because, so I know that you're out to violate me then. Because you can't talk about firearm, you can't talk about weapon, you can't talk about gun, Glock, 38, 18 shots and all that type of stuff, and it not be coercion. Right? Because the only constitutional thing is an arm that anybody's supposed to have if they have anything. Can't even say weapon. But that's what they say. So clearly they're constitutional violators if they're not going to use the term arm when referring to what they have as their so-called protection or whatever. Right? Now, the other part of the question was sending writs stating about the threat, duress, and coercion happening, right? Again, if the situation happened and you weren't nationalized, and then into the situation you found out about nationality, trying to apply it now might cause you more injury than you just being all caps and dealing with it. But dealing with it with the knowledge of, this being a process. This not being today and then tomorrow or whatever, but that this is a process. So today you find out something. You find it out, it's legit, all right, you apply it. Next day you find out something more, then you find out, okay, well then you take that, you apply that. Or maybe you might not apply it, and you don't. So, like for example, something happened, there's no concept of nationality or whatever. You get into a situation, now you found out about nationality. Moving forward from there, there should be some type of aspects of what you're learning that you can apply to this to put these people's brakes on. So like one of the things we tell people is reservation of rights. First rule, when you get into this information, forget going out there doing stuff or whatever. Start practicing, training yourself to reserve your rights anytime you're signing anything with anybody.
And how exactly do you do that?
On the line, we have stamps that we sell in the back. But on the line that you sign, right on the line, all rights reserved.
This is what it shows.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right? Right on the line, all rights reserved, or stamp the line, and then you sign over that.
Next to anything where your
Whatever,
signature goes.
anytime they say, especially if it's some foreign corporation that never has a face when you deal with them. You're always dealing with them under some form or application or whatever.
Right.
You're never talking to somebody like, yeah, hi, how you doing?
You gotta
It's always
self-
between you
self-stamp
and it's always between you, glass or counter or whatever like that, and then somebody on that side, and then you're always signing and they never sign ever.
Right.
You already know that this has to apply as soon as you see the setup. You know what I mean? You go into place and then they got how we got the DVDs right here. They got forms on the wall. You can just pick one up and just sign. Nobody else is signing. This applies.
I did mine Saturday.
Oh, for the ownership,
No,
right?
The license, the
Right.
temporary piece.
So it doing it is just to give you a little bit of space when you're dealing with these people.
Right.
So you don't feel so contracted with them because, oh, I'm finding out this information and there's just so much pressure that they're making me sign this and sign that. It says my name in all caps. Well, the Moors were right. They did put it in all caps or whatever, right? And then people start panicking. Don't panic. Just reserve your rights on the stuff. You know what I mean? It's not that serious because why? It's a void contract from its inception because you're the only one that signed it. So it's void. Automatically it's void. Because nobody else signed. But they'll tell you that we're going to hold you to that contract that you signed. They'll talk like that. But a contract has to be signed by all the parties involved.
And just be ready for them to give some resistance too.
You know,
If you reserve your rights.
once you reserve your rights.
They'll try to do stuff like, oh, you can't sign like that, and they'll try to say, oh, you gotta sign the new way, or all types of nonsense. But you just gotta, stay with it. Like, yo, this is my signature. You can't tell me how to
Right.
sign.
Right. Now, the other part, there's one more part of the question about, one more thing with regard to situations. The idea of coming into this information to get out of something is gonna get you in situations too.
Right.
So no, I have a situation. Like people call up Moors, like, yeah, I was trying to get a hold of Moors because I got a situation or whatever. As soon as they start, we already know, okay, slow down a little bit. You know what I mean? Slow down. You might as well be straw if you're in the situation already. Because there's nothing I can tell you that you're just gonna do that's gonna get you out right now. You know what I mean? Especially if it's something big. If it's something big, definitely. There's nothing that somebody's gonna tell you verbally that you're just gonna go apply and then whoever is violating you is gonna be like, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. You know what I mean? We'll just throw this out. Like that ain't going on. You know what I mean? That's false hopes people sell people so they can sell them packages and stuff like that. And we don't do packages, we do knowledge. You better know what you're talking about. Even if you buy a package from somebody, you still better know before you even send that package out or whatever, right? Can I have more information on private person versus legal person and natural person? Right? So remember when we were talking about if an individual says that they're a private person, right? In this realm of information, if they say I'm a private person, right? That's corporate and political. We say natural person. You wanna check that? Natural person. We say natural person because we know that person is a corporation. Right? So we say natural in front of person. Now, people are coming out now and they're saying private. They're saying private person. And not say that they're this. They say private person. Okay? If they're gonna say that they're private, then they're detaching themselves from the republic. If they say that they're private, they better be off the grid somewhere with solar, whatever and all that. Because to imply that you're a private person, but not a natural person, right? Doesn't even, because the opposite of private is public. So if you claim to be private, then the people who are violating you are claiming this, which gives them the authority to do something to you in this capacity, even if you say that you're that. They can still use this and get at the private. They can't use the person and get at the private person, but they can use the republic and get at the private person who's trying to detach themselves from natural person because, you know, a certain individual presented that information to the Moors so they can do further research, but, you know, people don't like him or whatever, so they're going to try to create their own stuff or make up their own whatever to try to be free of encumbrance from the colonial powers. When the only way that you're going to do that is if you're Aboriginal and indigenous to the land. And then if you're a natural person, then you're tied to nature. And I'd rather be natural person than a private person. Because all these people who are private, all the individuals who are private, guaranteed they were made private. That's not their claim. They signed something to be a private citizen or a private person. It might be under person.
You'd say,
Yeah, that's
you'd
right.
say,
But
you'd
just
say
not
individual,
under.
wouldn't you?
Hmm?
You'd say individual, no, wouldn't you?
For private?
Yeah, well, in any instance there, when you're,
This is a natural man.
yeah, you can say man, but then, yeah, you can say man. So what I'm saying
Yeah,
is,
oh, like instead of saying person, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because when you're coming into full life, then you'd you know, get rid of a person, persons.
Right, well, I
right?
mean, in full life, we'd get rid of all this and just say Moorish American or whatever.
Right, so yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? So this is just, you know, like, this is graduation.
right,
But people want to be,
yeah, they want to actually be it.
they want to be it.
Right. But in a
But-
contractual sense, just how they talk in whichever contractual level you're talking at, then you would you'd say any which one, but without being a person or putting yourself back into
Right, back into the corporate jurisdiction
Right.
by using
right that
person.
yeah.
Whether you attach natural to it, space, whatever.
Yeah.
Once you put person, right, it's like you're kind of still be in that corporate position. You know what I mean? Just like saying, you can say, John L. or, Heru L. You say John, I mean, you're still tied to the European kind of. You're not really completely in full life, Whereas if you say Heru, you're way more in full life than if you say John. But you have to get to this from here. You're not just gonna just come into information and just be this. Unless you're, that divinely tied to this information, that it just makes that much sense. I'm not Negro, black, color, so what am I? Oh, I'm Moor. Okay, so I need a Moorish name automatically. Forget hyphen on the European name and all that, right? So it's recognizing, just like brother saying that, yeah, it says person, right? Yeah, we put natural in front of person to just so that we're not saying person only, but we want to get even beyond natural person and use something that's more allodial or more in full life than tie into this. We don't want to just be John L. and stop there. Say, oh yeah, we're Moorish American, or John L. Oh yeah, we did it. No, like you want to go past that into having a completely private without saying private. Just like how they say secured party. Without saying I'm the secured party creditor. You don't have to say I'm the secured. As soon as you say I'm the secured party creditor, you're implying that you applied for that status.
It's an application.
It's not something that is with you as who you are. It's something that somebody said, if I listen, then you'll be private person instead of natural person. Oh yeah, well, private, like from the word of it, it seems like, yeah, you're tying yourself out of the public, right? But you're really segregating yourself from humanity by being private. Because even diplomats don't say that they're private. And they're more private than anybody. They have their own planes and all that, but they don't say that they're private. So as soon as they tie private to it, know that there's some type of process that's taking place to create this jurisdiction called private. There's an actual process. There's actually something that they're filing with somebody else in order for this to be stated. For somebody to say this, there's something that's filed. There's some type of process. There's some type of, somebody sent something to get sealed, or they sent something to get some authenticated copy of whatever in order to say that they're this. And if you're going to somebody who doesn't look like you in order to do a process to get you private, then you're not private. That's just another privilege, no different than saying that you're a U.S. citizen or whatever. You got the...
So there's I can't find anything that's a natural person.
Okay.
So what I do have is person, but they have person so long that it encompasses everything.
Encompasses other stuff? All right, okay. So just do your research or whatever on persons.
One thing I will read,
It does say it in there though.
It should be in there.
like natural person.
It states it.
It's in the
definition of person.
Yeah.
It states as a differentiation between corporate
Like
and
yeah.
it could mean also.
Like the one thing I will read, it says, in the United States Bankruptcy Act of 1898, it is provided the word person shall include corporations.
Yes.
Except where otherwise specified. So
Exactly.
anytime they use person, they're saying corporation, unless
Right.
they specify that it's something
Specify
else.
something
So
else.
that's it.
Yeah.
So you gotta specify. So if you just say person, okay, that's a person. And you have to specify, okay, I'm a natural person. If you're gonna say private person, if you're gonna
Right.
say I'm a indigenous
You have to
person.
specify.
And that's where they get everybody.
Other,
because
yeah.
Nothing is nowhere it's specified, which means they're talking
Right.
about the corporation in itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
First and foremost.
First and foremost. Right. All right. Well, I know there's any questions or anything like that. Anything at all? Any questions, Brother Lex? Everything is good? Yeah.
I just came in. So you say that private makes you still a corporation?
Not that it makes you that, but if you say that you're a private citizen,
Yeah.
there's the perspective of being private comes from you filling out something, authenticating something, getting some type of authorization on something to be private. So it like this is used a lot in the sense of people who do birth certificate, whatever, claim birth certificate. You know what I mean? So now that they have the birth certificate and the so-called colonizer said, sure, you can have the birth certificate, right? Now they're saying they're private because they own this entity and they can choose to use it, not use it, whatever. But you can do that with nationality and just say that you're more. Without having to tie yourself or have possession of that so-called birth certificate instrument, which is null and void from its inception. So in order for me to be private, I have to claim something that's null and void from its inception, then I'm not private. Because I'm claiming something that's void. And the void thing that I'm claiming is coming from democracy corporation. Whether I have knowledge of it, no knowledge of it, or my mom did or whatever, all that is irrelevant. Because I guarantee you, in order for you to be this, whatever process it is, authentication or whatever, you got to give those people fiat. We're on a secondary thing now. So now you have the document and you paid for it. Now we have access to unlimited account and then whatever. Yeah, but what unlimited account? They're bankrupt. That's a bankrupt corporation. Unlimited what? They're a private corporation that's been bankrupt since 1933. What do they got in that account? Oh, well, you could discharge and whatever. You could discharge using a signature without claiming this. But they put these things in, authentication processes, claiming birth certificate processes, they put these things in because if people knew how easy it was to just do it, these people will fall tomorrow. What if everybody said, let's pay for stuff with our signature now? And that's what we agree on. Just like we agree that, this is money, so I'm going to go to the store and give this, right, in order to get something. Okay, everybody agreed, okay, we're not even going to use this no more, we're just going to use signature now to pay for everything. People are going to say, no, we can't do that. All the stuff in their store is going to get expired, and then they're going to have to do it. Because they're not going to be able to get rid of nothing. People will be like, hey, I'm not doing it. I'm not giving you fiat. If we give you anything, it's going to be a signature to pay for whatever. Because the signature is the same signature on the birth certificate that people are saying they're going to authenticate birth certificate, so now we have the birth certificate. Okay, but it's about the signature of the name on that birth certificate that creates whatever that they have in the corporate society. That's why I tell everybody, sign everything. Sign here. You want to do it? $500 loan? Sign here. You sign, you get the loan. Okay, so then obviously it's the signature is what is being used to generate.
Because without a signature, you're not getting it.
Without a signature, you're not getting anything.
Part of the signature.
You know what I mean? If you got it without the signature, then we could say, okay, signature doesn't matter. But the fact that they need a signature for everything, especially things dealing with, their little fiat game or whatever, mortgage, here, sign this, we'll give you a mortgage. You reserve your rights, bet you don't get that mortgage. Reserve your rights, I bet you they say, no, sorry, your car loan, whatever, is going to be 28%, instead of the 5% that you're supposed to get or whatever, because, we wrote, this is our contract. We can make up the rules or whatever, So that's about it. So everybody has everything. No questions or nothing. If anybody, just putting it out there, anybody's interested in being, if anybody's interested in being with the Culture Club Committee that's working on, you know, the Drew Ali Day event and any other events that we're doing, get at me and I could contact you with Mother Mocha L, who's heading up doing that, the Culture Club. And January 3rd is gonna be our fifth annual, sixth annual Drew Ali Day. It's gonna be at 2467 Eglinton, same place where we do the town hall meetings. And the theme is Moorish costume ball. So you could get your time, put your time in right now to go get your whatever you want to get. You can talk with Brother Tallahassee El Bay, Brother Troy El Bay. They have a spot that they go to get their custom clothes. They go to India Bazaar on Gerard. There's a store out there that they go to. So you can connect with them, and you know, you could do your research, tailors or whatever like that. Give them any type of designs and they'll make some stuff.
That's dope.
But the theme is Moorish costume ball for this year's Drew Ali Day. So really want Moors look their best this year. And that might be the thing, you know, going forward. I know Brother Tesba was also talking about having something every few months relative to, you know, Moorish culture, whether it's fashion shows or whatever, just so that we can get our presence acknowledged by our people. So with that, we'll just close out. Islam to all the Moors online. You know, say again?
Oh no, he's talking about busy man, you know.
You know, always. So we'll just close out. Any announcements, Amari? You have anything?
No,
Alright.
everything's ready now.
All right.
No.
5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
To his holy prophet.
To his holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali.
Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
Islam.
Ashik.
Oh yeah, you see what I'm going?
No,
It's a gym though.
Ashik.